The initial single-celled fertilized egg is known as the A. Embryo. B. Zygote. C. Blastocyst. D. Morula. The answer is B. Zygote. A zygote is a karyotic cell formed by the joining of two gametes, sperm and egg. The zygote then goes on to divide several times till it forms a small clump of cells termed a morula. The next stage is the formation of a blastocyst, which is the final stage before development into an embryo. An embryo implants days after ovulation. A. 7 to 10. B. 5 to 7. C. 10 to 12. D. 1 to 5. The answer is A. 7 to 10. The zygote has developed into an embryo and reached the uterus by day 5 and will generally implant on day 7 to 10 after ovulation. The majority of first trimester miscarriages are due to A. Lifting heavy objects. B. Chromosome abnormalities. C. Exercise. D. None of these. The answer is B. Chromosome abnormalities. The most common cause of first trimester miscarriage is chromosome abnormalities. These can occur in as many as 1 in 4 pregnancies, and cause the developing embryo issues that are not compatible with life. Lifting heavy objects and exercise are not generally responsible for triggering miscarriage, though they could potentially trigger a miscarriage in individuals with underlying conditions or other risk factors. What organelle is considered to be the powerhouse of the cell, due to its role in production of ATP? A. Mitochondria. B. The nucleus. C. The Golgi apparatus. D. The rough endoplasmic reticulum. The answer is A. Mitochondria. Mitochondria are often called the powerhouse of the cell because they produce ATP, the body's most basic unit of energy. The nucleus houses the cell's DNA, the rough endoplasmic reticulum is the site of cellular protein manufacturing, and the Golgi apparatus packages protein manufactured in the cell for release and transport to the rest of the body. Which of the following is not a function of the cell membrane? A. Anchors the cytoskeleton to hold the shape of the cell. B. Synthesize proteins. C. Regulates passage of substances into and out of the cell. D. Attaches to the extracellular matrix and other cells to create tissues. The answer is B. Synthesize proteins. The cell membrane has many purposes. It anchors the cytoskeleton to give the cell shape and structure. It houses proteins that both interact with signaling molecules from outside the cell and communicate with secondary messengers within the cell. It facilitates the absorption and release of electrolytes, water, and vesicles carrying proteins or other molecules. It forms junctions with other cells and connects the cell to the extracellular matrix. One thing the cell membrane does not do, however, is act as a site of protein synthesis. That occurs primarily in the rough endoplasmic reticulum or on ribosomes in the cytoplasm. Which organelle is responsible for synthesis of lipids within the cell? A. The nucleus. B. The Golgi apparatus. C. The smooth endoplasmic reticulum, SER. D. The mitochondria. The answer is C. The smooth endoplasmic reticulum, SER. The majority of lipid production within the cell occurs within the smooth endoplasmic reticulum. It is also the site of production of steroids and phospholipids. The Golgi apparatus is responsible for packaging of cell products for transport outside of the cell. The mitochondria produce ATP, and the nucleus houses the DNA. Which of the following organelles is responsible for cellular respiration? A. The centrioles. B. The mitochondria. C. The peroxisomes. D. The ribosomes. The answer is B. The mitochondria. Aerobic cellular respiration occurs exclusively in the mitochondria. These organelles are present in greater number in cells that require a large supply of ATP, such as striated muscle cells, liver cells, and sperm cells. The dash makes up the structural framework of the cell. A. Cytoplasm. B. Rough endoplasmic reticulum. C. Nucleolus. D. Cytoskeleton. The answer is D. Cytoskeleton. The framework of the cell is made up by the cytoskeleton. The cytoskeleton gives the cell both shape and structure, and allows the cell to attach to extracellular connective tissue in order to form tissue types. There are three major fibers that make up cytoskeleton: microfilaments, actin, intermediate filaments, and microtubules. What role does cholesterol play in the cell membrane? A. Detoxification. B. Energy production. C. Fluidity and stabilization of phospholipids. D. Production of steroids. The answer is C. Fluidity and stabilization of phospholipids. Cholesterol is a vital component of the cellular membrane. It maintains both the fluidity and structural integrity of the cell. While cholesterol is an integral component of steroid production, this occurs outside of the cell membrane. Cholesterol does not play a significant role in cellular energy production or cell membrane detoxification. All of the cells of the human body except sex cells and undifferentiated stem cells are termed cells. A. Somatic. B. Gamete. C. Eukaryotic. D. Chromatic. The answer is A. Somatic. All of the cells of the human body except sex cells are termed somatic cells. These are diploid cells, meaning that they contain two homologous copies of each chromosome. Sex cells, eggs and sperm, are haploid cells, containing just one set of chromosomes in each cell. All human cells are eukaryotic, because they contain a nucleus and organelles within a cellular membrane. Which of the following organelles is responsible for protein synthesis? A. Lysosomes. B. Ribosomes. C. The nucleus. D. The smooth endoplasmic reticulum. The answer is B. Ribosomes. While the nucleus houses the DNA and plays an integral role in the transcription of genetic code in order to produce specific proteins, actual protein synthesis is carried out by the ribosomes. These organelles consist of two subunits and are either independent in the cytoplasm of the cell or housed in the rough endoplasmic reticulum. Note that ribosomes can be in the cytoplasm or on the endoplasmic reticulum, hence making it rough. A hypertonic IV would cause some amount of red blood cells as water moved out of the cell across the osmotic gradient. A. Lysing. B. Crenation. C. A hypertonic IV would not affect blood cells. D. Saturation. The answer is B. Crenation. A hypertonic solution, or one which contains solutes in higher concentration than blood cells, would cause water to leave the red blood cell across the osmotic gradient. This causes a reversible crumpling or shriveling of the cell, termed crenation. A cell in a hypotonic solution, wherein the cell itself contained a higher level of solutes than the fluid, would take on water, potentially causing the cell to lyse, burst. Ribosomal subunits are manufactured by what organelle? A. Smooth endoplasmic reticulum, SER. B. Nucleus. C. Nucleolus. D. Rough endoplasmic reticulum, RER. The answer is C. Nucleolus. Ribosomal subunits are manufactured by the nucleolus, which is contained within the nucleus. Its primary function is the production and assembly of ribosome subunits. The RER houses ribosomes for protein manufacture. The SER does not take part in ribosome production or functioning. Note that ribosomes are composed of RNA and protein. Proteins are translated on ribosomes in the cytoplasm. A human cell spends 90% of its lifetime in which phase of the cell cycle? A. Cytokinesis. B. Gap 1. C. Interphase. D. Mitotic phase. The answer is C. Interphase. 90% of the cell cycle is spent in interphase. This time is also termed the resting phase as it is absorbing nutrients and replicating cellular elements in preparation for cell division. This phase includes the stages Gap 1 and Gap 2. Mitosis and cytokinesis, the final stages in cell division, are both relatively short compared to interphase, accounting for approximately 10% of the cell cycle. The chemotherapeutic agent vinblastine interferes with the assembly of microtubules. This is effective in the treatment of certain cancers due to what cellular effect? A. Inhibition of mitochondrial function. B. Disruption of the formation of mitotic spindles. C. Inhibition of DNA synthesis. D. Destabilization of cellular membranes. The answer is B. Disruption of the formation of mitotic spindles. Vinblastine and similar chemotherapeutic agents function by disrupting the formation and stability of microtubules in the cell. Because cell division is dependent on microtubule function, loss of microtubule integrity targets rapidly reproducing cells such as cancer cells. A solution is said to be dash when it contains a lower solute concentration than the cell. A. Hypotonic. B. Nontonic. C. Hypertonic. D. Isotonic. The answer is A. Hypotonic. A hypotonic solution is one that contains solutes at a lower concentration than the cell. A cell, such as a red blood cell, will swell when exposed to a hypotonic solution as water moves into the cell to balance the osmotic gradient. Which vitamins are necessary to convert glutamic acid into glutamine? A. Vitamin E and vitamin D. B. Vitamin C and vitamin B12. C. Vitamin B3 and vitamin B6. D. Biotin and folate. The answer is C. Vitamin B3 and vitamin B6. Vitamin B3 and vitamin B6 are required to convert glutamic acid into glutamine. Biotin, vitamin B7, plays roles in fat and amino acid metabolism, and though there has been no conclusive evidence of its effect on the growth of hair and nails, it is commonly taken as a supplement for these purposes. Folate, vitamin B9, is required during synthesis of red blood cells, and during DNA replication. Folate cannot be synthesized in ovo, and thus must be ingested from the diet. Vitamin C is a powerful antioxidant, and is a cofactor to many biological processes. Cobalamin, vitamin B12, is involved in cell metabolism, particularly in that of fatty acids and amino acids. The source of B12 is from the natural flora of the gut. Vitamin D enhances the absorption of minerals such as calcium, magnesium, and zinc from the gastrointestinal tract. Vitamin E is a fat-soluble antioxidant. What B vitamin deficiency is common in alcoholism? A. Folate. B. Riboflavin, B2. C. Biotin. D. Thiamine, B1. The answer is D. Thiamine, B1. Alcoholism is associated with thiamine, vitamin B1, deficiency. This is due to multiple factors: poor nutrition, ethanol's inhibition of thiamine transport in the intestine, and reduced storage of thiamine in the liver due to fatty changes. What essential amino acid is a precursor to nitric oxide? A. Leucine. B. Methionine. C. L-arginine. D. Histidine. The answer is C. L-arginine. L-arginine is a precursor for the production of nitric oxide, essential to vasodilation. Other precursors to nitric oxide include NADPH, oxygen, and nitric oxide synthetase, NOS, enzymes. These other amino acids do not have essential roles in the nitric oxide synthesis pathway. A physician might recommend decreased fluid intake for which of the following conditions? A. Vomiting. B. Renal disease. C. Pressure ulcer. D. Nasogastric tube. The answer is B. Renal disease. A physician is most likely to recommend decreased fluid intake in a patient that has renal disease, particularly if they are in any stage of renal failure. This is because a high fluid intake may put undue strain on the already impaired function of the kidney. Increased fluid intake is generally recommended for all of the other conditions listed. What is the most common cause of copper deficiency in the U.S.? A. Soil mineral depletion. B. Inadequate dietary intake. C. Wilson's disease. D. Gastric bypass. The answer is D. Gastric bypass. The most common cause of copper deficiency in the United States is gastric bypass. This is due to malabsorption from food. Copper is fairly ubiquitous in soil and in the average American diet. Wilson's disease is a disorder of excess copper, rather than copper deficiency, resulting in a variety of neurological symptoms. Which of the following is a symptom of vitamin K deficiency? A. Bone malformation. B. Petechiae. C. Cartilage calcification. D. All of these. The answer is D. All of these. Vitamin K deficiency can cause a variety of issues related to inability to form blood clots such as petechiae, excessive bleeding, bruising, heavy menses. This vitamin is also an important part of bone and cartilage formation, with deficiency resulting in malformation of developing bones and cartilage, or deposition of calcium into cartilage or arterial walls. Which of the following spices was shown in several studies to lower blood sugar in type 2 diabetics by decreasing insulin resistance? A. Turmeric. B. Cumin. C. Cinnamon. D. Oregano. The answer is C. Cinnamon. An intake of 1 to 6 grams of cinnamon has been shown in studies to lower blood sugar in patients with type 2 diabetes by as much as 25%, possibly due to its ability to improve insulin sensitivity. Which of the following is the most common cause of osteomalacia? A. Biotin deficiency. B. Vitamin K deficiency. C. Vitamin E deficiency. D. Vitamin D deficiency. The answer is D. All of these. Vitamin K deficiency can cause a variety of issues related to inability to form blood clots such as petechiae, excessive bleeding, bruising, heavy menses. This vitamin is also an important part of bone and cartilage formation, with deficiency resulting in malformation of developing bones and cartilage, or deposition of calcium into cartilage or arterial walls. Which of the following nutrients, when consumed at the same time as a meal that contains non-Hem iron, iron from plant sources such as spinach, can significantly improve iron absorption? A. Calcium. B. Vitamin C. C. Vitamin D. D. Magnesium. The answer is B. Vitamin C. Vitamin C chelates non-Hem iron in food while exposed to the acidic pH of the stomach. This chelated iron then becomes more soluble in the alkaline pH of the duodenum, resulting in increased intestinal absorption of iron.